Welcome to the Women of Kriya Yoga Living in Joy podcast, a gathering place for women walking the spiritual path. Here we share stories, teachings, and reflections rooted in the timeless practices of Kriya Yoga. These conversations are an offering from the Women's Ministry of Kriya Yoga International, inviting you to rest in stillness, awaken your inner light, and connect with a community of women to support one another in living in joy. Our host is Marydale Ma, a devoted disciple of Paramahamsa Yogananda, whose boundless love guided her to the feet of her beloved Guruji, Paramahamsa Pragyanananda, within the sacred lineage of the Kriya Yoga International Masters. A seasoned yoga teacher and mentor for more than 40 years, she's trained in the Krishnamacharya tradition and founded the Param Yoga Healing Arts Center in California. Through her teaching and mentorship, Marydale supports seekers in awakening their highest potential and cultivating love, compassion, and equanimity through consistent practice. In this episode, we are talking with Diane Spence. Diane lays claim to several cultural influences. While born in Montego Bay, Jamaica, she grew up in Ontario, Canada after her family immigrated there. After high school, she completed a couple bachelor's degrees, including a degree in broadcast journalism. After 10 years in the film and television industry, which included a move to New York City, she decided to pursue graduate studies in Virginia. She went on to complete her MBA and a PhD in public policy. She spent the remainder of her career as an executive director and chief business officer at a research university. It was during her time in New York that she was introduced to Kriya Yoga by a friend. She took first Kriya initiation in 2001 and has been a practicing Kriyavan since then. While in Virginia, she helped set up the Falls Church Kriya Center. She now resides in Florida and continues to seek opportunities to serve.
And welcome, dear friends, to the Living in Joy podcast. It's a blessing and my joy to greet you, our listeners from around the world. As you well know, we find ourselves living in challenging times when uncertainty and change touch all of us. Yet, it's in moments just like these that our spiritual practice becomes an anchor, a refuge, and for most of us, a source of real strength. More than ever, women everywhere are being called to come together, to lift one another, and to lean into the timeless wisdom of the masters. We're blessed to have this platform, this gathering place, a sanctuary to remind us that we're not alone. And that indeed joy, love, and even equanimity are possible in every season of life. We're walking this sacred path together. So let us join our hearts and our hands as we celebrate the voices of women in Kriya Yoga, represented by our special guest today, Diane Spence. And before I introduce Diane, I'd like to pause and invite you to pause and truly arrive in this moment. You've taken time to be here with us, which we're grateful for. Now let your whole self settle into this sacred space. Please silence your phone, release any distractions, and give yourself the grace of stillness for the next little while. Find a comfortable seat to begin with, and then if you'd like, you may join us by closing your eyes. And let your breath begin to guide you inward. With each inhale, begin to receive a sense of peace. And with each exhale, feel a sense of only love. Breathing in peace, exhaling love, love. Inhale peace, exhale love, love, love. Father, Mother, beloved Lord, with reverence, we bow at the feet of our masters. our divine Paramahansa Hariharananda, our adorable Guruji Paramahansa Prajnanananda, our Param Guru Paramahansa Yogananda, and the luminous lineage of Kriya Yoga masters across time. To you, we offer our deepest gratitude for this blessed gathering, for the opportunity to honor women walking the path of Kriya Yoga, and for the joy of their voices with the world. We thank you for joining us together to hold a safe, sacred space for our guest to share her heart openly and perhaps allow us a glimpse into her beautiful world. May the stories and wisdom shared here today be a light for all, strengthening our devotion, deepening our sadhana, our practice, and uplifting women everywhere. With humble hearts, we bow at your precious feet. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Amen. And thank you for that, everyone. And thank you, Diane, so much. We welcome you on this day and appreciate you carving out a little time to be with us. Now, Diane, it's great to have you. Diane, you've lived in so many cultural landscapes: Jamaica, Canada, New York, Virginia, and now Florida. How have all of these diverse roots shaped your outlook on life and spirituality?
Well, that's a great question. Not only have I lived in diverse landscapes, but I've also traveled a lot. And to be quite frank, I think what travel and living in different environments and different circumstances bring to us is compassion and an appreciation for differences that not only in the way people exist in the world, but in many times in the way people worship in the world. In Jamaica, I was part of a very centrally Christian Catholic upbringing to that, for the early part of my life. And very similarly, as I grew up in Canada, where I spent, a great deal of my formative years, it was really once I moved to New York, that melting pot of diversity and interest, and that I started to have different experiences that spoke to the questions I had about life and spirituality and purpose.
Well, that sounds so wonderful. And I know that here in the United States, people like to think that New York is the heart of our whole country because of all the diversity and gifts that are there. And it must have been quite an interesting transition for you, Jamaica, Canada, and then New York. And as you look back, were there seeds of spirituality in your childhood or youth that you feel prepared you for the path of Kriya?
Uh, that's a good question. When I reflect on that, I'm not, maybe in many ways, and ways that I didn't intentionally acknowledge. I was provided with a foundation and a belief system, which I proceeded to question as I grew older and sort of expanded my point of view. But I did spend a year in a Catholic boarding school with nuns. And even in growing up in Canada, again, being a part of the church and serving in youth choir. So there are all those little foundational things that have always been that was a part of my youth. But it's a very different perspective looking at it in the rear view versus when I was existing through it as I grew up. So the meaning of what I may have learned as a child has a very different impact as I've gone back and reread things that I had to learn by rote, if that's clear. So I think yes, the foundational tenets were there. And when what pops into my mind, I think of uh, Guruji and Gurudev talking, and being born into the concept of a Brahmin family and having early access to those teachers, and that didn't exist. But my father was a deacon in the church, and my mother, in her later years, became a lay minister. So it's very possible that foundations were being built that I wasn't even aware of. But again, today, my spiritual path is very different from theirs.
Truly. And yet, both of them seem to be wonderful role models of putting spirituality as a foundational base in their lives. And that's a gift, I think, for a child growing up, don't you?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt, I think that foundational understanding, I think back then, if I'm quite honest, I think it was more carrot and stick.
Uh-huh.
So as a child, I think it was more carrot and stick. If you do the right things, then you're rewarded for that. And if you do the wrong things, then this will happen. As we grow and we in our spirituality understanding, it's obviously quite a different landscape. But I think it gave you a sort of a formula for understanding. In addition to teachings, and of course the Bible was a central part of that. It gave you a pathway to follow to sort of make sense of life when your mind was so young and maybe not as agile to take in broader concepts. And I do think that, directed my path as a child. I don't think it always kept me from doing the wrong thing by any means. But, I think even the concept of being self aware to know you've been taught is right and what you've been taught is wrong. To be taught the understanding of charity and forgiveness, do unto others as you'd have them do to you. These things I do believe provide a great foundation on which to build a life that will only gets more challenging as you grow older and have more responsibilities and expectations.
Absolutely. And the things that you mentioned are very prevalent in the teachings of the 8 limbs of yoga to build a life based on character. And so that was a very good beginning for you, Diane. And I appreciate your parents for the care that they gave you. And I'm so glad that it led you to the feet of Gurudev, because I know you made a reference to the lens of our lives, which I really like, because I believe that Kriya Yoga is able to take all the dirt off of our lenses in this world and really allow us to see truth. And that's very provocative in a way, empowering and delightful. And it's a gift. So I liked that reference a lot. Now, you built a remarkable career, Diane, not only in journalism, but in film, television, and later in leadership at a research university. That's a lot. How has your professional journey influenced your spiritual life?
I would actually flip that and say, how has my spirituality influenced my career?
I love it.
Actually, the opposite.
Great.
Um, I I became a Kriyavan I was initiated in 2001, so about 24 years ago. And I would have to say that becoming a Kriyavan really was a tipping point to my transition from a life in film and television into a life of public service, nonprofit, and ultimately, education. Uh, I think once you start to live the tenets of Kriya Yoga as your life, what your direction often changes if that is the next step in your path. And for me, it certainly did. Um, as a practicing Kriyavan, there was just a transformation where the industry of film and television no longer served my highest purpose or fulfilled me in what I wanted to be. What I wanted from life changed. I didn't know where it was going, but I knew there was going to be change. And so that is my honest response. It's less my career on my spirituality and more my spirituality on my career. Because from there, I moved into a nonprofit, first in film and television, and then into other areas. And it's been essential. It's essential part of my daily life. And the teachings of Shri Gurudev and Guruji really help to guide each and every step I take every day of my life. And so, needless to say, it impacted how I interacted with others in my career. Because regardless of what the environment is, if you commit to a spiritual life, and especially in the path of Kriya Yoga, where you're essentially saying, I will use the life and example of the gurus to determine the path and direction and how I conduct myself. And that is what they've taught me. That's not a new concept. I've heard it over and over again, which is, don't worship me, be me. They give us an example of how to live our life, a life of service, a life of generosity, without thought of reciprocity, a life of principle in all aspects. And so I took those tenets as really the instructional book for how I conducted myself in a professional environment. And I would confess that even as chief business officer and executive director, I would have a picture of Gurudev and Guruji on my desk. So at any moment, I would look over at their pictures, and if I needed a reminder of how I needed to be in a moment, if I was in a meeting or on the telephone, just all that physical guidance of remembering, what path I've chosen.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you reminded me of what Guruji often talks to us about, the story of Lahiri Baba in Autobiography of a Yogi, that if you think my picture is a picture, it is. But the fact is, it is the presence of the masters. And having them with us constantly is so wonderful, because it allows us the opportunity in the moment to give everything to them and just allow them to take the reins or the wheel or whatever we want to say. And it certainly sounds like that's how you led your very dynamic leadership role. It's wonderful. You had partners, honey. You had good partners.
Yes, I still have them. They have not released me.
Amen and amen.
Yes.
That's so great. That's so great. Well, if we go backwards just a little bit, Diane, to the time when you were in New York and introduced to Kriya, and when you took initiation, can you share what actually drew you so deeply to this path? Was there a trigger or something? Was it Gurudev himself?
It really is a beautiful question. And, I've reflected on it. I don't often tell the story because I
Oh,
almost
please do.
feel,
Please do.
but I will in this case.
Yeah, good.
Sometimes, I never want the awe and magic of what I experienced to wear off. So that's probably why I don't tell. But this is just a conversation between you and I, so we don't really have to worry about it.
That's right.
So, I when I found out about Kriya Yoga, and I had been obviously reading different spiritual books and really expanding my knowledge from many great writers who have helped to influence, in to educate me. I guess is a better word for it. That I had found through different, it comes to you when you're searching. The information comes to you. And a friend an acquaintance I'd made in New York mentioned Kriya Yoga. I had never heard about it, knew nothing about it. And she showed me the pamphlet. And there are a couple of things that that sort of stirred the pot before I got to that point. But when that came across my, my desk, and she had a newsletter, the newsletter that they would send out, it would go out in paper, and she had it in the number on the back in Homestead. And there was just for me a sense of knowing. It was very, there was just something about after I read through it that made me feel some connection. So I literally randomly called Homestead, picked up the phone, called Mama Said in Homestead, and whoever answered the phone, and I said, I think I'm supposed to be initiated into Kriya Yoga.
No way. Just like that.
We called Homestead.
That's crazy.
And this is the naivety and beauty of being, a child in Kriya Yoga, so to speak. And they said, okay, all right, where are you? I said, I'm in New York. And they said, well, there's a group that meets in New York. And why don't you go to a couple of meditations and see if it's for you? And you can talk to the acharyas. There are two acharyas there, and you can, talk with them, and see where you want to go from there. And I said, okay, thank you. They told me when and of course, I started to read. Oh, they also suggested, and you may want to pick up, a book. It's called, um, can you guess
Autobiography
what
of a
book?
Yogi. Yes.
Autobiography of a Yogi. And they said, and just read through that, and that may give you an understanding of, what Kriya Yoga is and what it's about. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So that afternoon, I hung up the phone. They were so sweet to me. I went to the bookstore, could not find this book. As soon as I'm leaving, there it was, one copy. I bought it.
Great.
I took it home. I know this all happened in a day, and I started reading through, and I said, okay, this is interesting. Now, I had no exposure. Of course, there's a lot of Hindu symbolism and the idea of the form and the formless, and some very interesting journeys upon which, Yogananda embarks in this process. And so I'm reading that and thinking, wow, this is really different from what I know. Anyway, I go to the meditation, and I sit for the meditation, and I'm wondering, is this somewhere where I will fit? And then the Acharya starts to talk. And it's John Williams, who is Jamaican. So of all the places you can walk into, and all the people who could be there, among all of this that I don't know and don't recognize, is that beacon saying, honey, you're in the right place. Don't worry about it. And needless to say, the rest is so that is how I joined the path. That was the first step. And of course, I started attending meditations and was initiated in New York. But I had the grace, again, how children will just do whatever they think they want to do. They're not worried about the consequences. So shortly after I was initiated, my sister was getting married on one of the keys in Florida. And so I was going down to Florida to go to this wedding because at that time I was living in New York. I thought, well, I'm going to be going down to the Keys. I'm going to be driving right by Homestead. So we were going to be in Miami for a bachelorette party, and then we were all going to be driving down to the Keys. We had our own car. I made sure I rented my own car because I was obviously going to go to the ashram, and I'm going to go and meet Gurda.
Great.
And I will tell you, the day after that bachelorette party, I am in my car and I drive to Homestead. No program is going on. Nothing is happening there. And I show up at the ashram and I said, I have just been initiated and I'm here to see Gurudev.
Great.
And so the wonderful ashramite, who is a Swami today, said, well, Gurudev is here. He's resting. I will go and ask him if he's able to see you. And I am just blessed because he did. And so I had an audience with my beloved Sri Gurudev literally within a couple of months of being initiated, and had got to sit with him and talk with him and, bow to his feet. And he forever changed the chemistry of my soul. And that was there's no going back after that, is there?
No, there's definitely no going back after that. And the Lord acts in mysterious ways, just how beautifully your path took you to Kriya and to Gurudev. I mean, you couldn't do that yourself. It's impossible.
No,
this was out of your hands, Diane. So, and you said something before that really touched me. And I think for myself personally, and from what you're saying, I think you'll agree, there's a real recognition in Kriya when you become initiated. You recognize the masters. There's somehow, oh, I've been here before. I resonate to this. This is very familiar. And the amount of love that radiates from the masters it's a phenomena. It's just something, it's incomprehensible. And it sounds like Gurudev just took you and right into his heart.
He really, really did in that moment, because his vision is so pure. He helped me to see myself as he saw me.
Oh my goodness.
And once that curtain has been drawn back from your eyes, once you see with that clarity, you walk differently in the world, because we are all that. And I always make the joke, Gurudev brought me in and then gave Guruji the work. Guruji had to do the work, the direction, the correction, So I think Gurudev did a lot of that, and yes. I think Guruji in his own does that. But I think ultimately, the purpose of life is to not only become that perfected version of ourselves that he sees instantly among us, but to learn to live in such a way that we feel it as well. We just don't know it as a concept. We feel it and embody it in the moment. And, we can't understand. It's impossible to understand the gurus. It's impossible. But what you don't have to what you're not challenged to understand is, one, the way in which they walk through life. Two, the way in which they provide an example of how to live in perfect peace and harmony. They provide you with instructions. Do this, don't do that. It's as simple as that. And Sri Gurudev never said much when we would have satsang. All I can remember when I remember Sri Gurudev is he'd be finger on the top of the head. It's so simple. Fontaine, like at every moment in every day, where's your focus? And if your focus, like, it doesn't need 10 tomes of books. It's such a simple concept. And that's what he would say. And I remember him before there was a meditation hall. Sorry, I get excited and talk with my hands when I think of Sri Gurudev. Um, but I remember there's no meditation hall yet, just a tent, they would have, and a stage, and, that room would be set up. I don't know if you were ever at Homestead back then, but, and he would spend some time just looking around the room without saying anything. It was like he was taking stock of each one of us, and checking it to say, where are you, what are you doing? And if you were if you were behind somebody, he would, like, why are you there? You're blocking your own view. Or why are your eyes closed? You come all this way and you can't see me. It was just so basic, so simple. Where's your attention? Where's your focus? And if you take that into life at any time, and I would say for myself, if I'm in a moment that feels challenging or trying, I'm so trained now that that's what I do. I'm like, okay, instantly up there, go to the fontanelle, go to that access point. And the transformation happens because when we're there, you're not in your ego or in your heart, you're not in anger or resentment or whatever the case may be. So it becomes, the simplest of teachings becomes transformational for your life on a daily basis if you choose to adopt them.
Yes. So it's absolutely a pathway of living that is very doable for us. And at first we may not think so, but having Guruji as the excellent teacher he is, obviously he was able to chip away, Missy, and get that work done on behalf of his beloved Gurudev.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. And it keeps on going.
It keeps on going. Oh, yes. I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel that. And, for me personally, I sometimes feel like I have a little choke chain, and every once in a while, Guruji says, "What are you doing?" It's like, wait, what?
Like what? Exactly.
What are you doing?
But just imagine the kind of love and attention, or sorry, imagine the love that represents to have that attention on so many individuals in that, so it's happening to me, it's happening to you, it's happening to, because once you've been initiated, you're initiated.
Right. And they're in us forever. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. What a gift. Just an amazing gift. So now I'm going to ask you just real quick if you could. I know you were instrumental in helping to establish the Falls Church Kriya Center in Virginia. And I know you came there already being a seasoned leader and doing a lot of seva, but now you're Kriyavan. How did being in that community change your outlook towards seva, or did it just kind of kick it up a notch?
I'm not sure I understand. You mean starting the center?
Starting the center and being part of that community.
I think it was a sense of responsibility. If that was the shift and the desire to start the center really came from a place of having been given so much And I have done, I've been grateful to have been given opportunities to do Seva throughout my life as a Kriyavan in different ways at different times. Um, but uh, that really started when a couple who had recently gotten initiated at Homestead had been given my name when they moved to Northern Virginia. I had recently moved to Northern Virginia. They had been living there, and they wanted to practice that. I'm not an acharya, but I could, I said, certainly I can sit with you and help you. I called Homestead and asked, and out of that, it just grew. And other people in the community, people from Maryland and somebody in Falls Church, because we had all been going to a location in Maryland that was quite far away for those of us that were in Northern Virginia. And it grew out of that. And it was kind of in a little way strange because, I always see myself as this errant child that Guruji's constantly trying to get in line, and that Gurudev is always looking over saying, "Oh, my perfect grandchild, you're so wonderful and perfect." And Guru's, and then here I now was sort of being the mother and helping to get this started. And so it was really a gift to be able to get that, to, to have that happen. And we did initiations and, programs and worked with the nearby other center, and so it was just wonderful to be a part of that and to see going on now, even though I'm no longer there. Is just a beautiful thing. They just co-hosted a program and Guruji was in. I thought, oh my gosh, look at this, look how far we've come.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. So they sent me pictures and I saw the pictures. So it actually brings me to another point of what the one of the greatest gifts that I feel I've gotten from Kriya, and that's that call to service, that sense of everything being service, everything. Even when I worked in a professional, there was a sense that my work was service, that I existed in the world to be of service. And because that's how our gurus live. They live to serve. I mean, that is it. And for me, I adopted that. So it's an honor to serve. It fills my heart to serve, and I seek opportunities to serve, and I serve when I can in amongst. And it's not just service to Kriya; it's service to family, it's service to friends. Um, so. Uh, I'm so grateful for the tutelage of how to exist in this world because, we're talking about living in joy, but in order to live in joy, you first have to live in peace, right? Peace precedes joy. Now, I am blessed in the sense that I have not suffered from a chronic disease. So, there are certain hurdles I didn't have to overcome in order to get to joy again. But in terms of peace, to get to peace, you have to learn to let go of resentment, to learn to go of anger, to live in anger, to live in a space of forgiveness. So there's certain steps, and once you've learned to take those steps, and you that has become inculcated into the way you live, then joy becomes accessible. Not happiness, which is a momentary thing, but joy, peace that passes understanding, joy that passes understanding, because it's lit from within. You can sometimes experience it in meditation if you get to that place and all of a sudden you feel yourself smiling. Why are you smiling? It's that sense of connection to that pure, the purest form of existence, of soul. And so I think service is an outcome of once living to ensure that you're in peace, and then being able to therefore serve. And someone once said, you serve from the overflow. So you fill your cup up and then you serve from the overflow, because at all times you want to be balanced, you want to be healthy, because that's part of it. if you're not balanced, you're not healthy, you can't have peace. So I think it's all interconnected, but those foundational blocks are in place. And from those foundational blocks, are we able to access and live in joy? One, because you're at peace with all your actions, or you know how to, transform your feelings um, into peace. And therefore, you can now go and experience joy.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And I appreciate that. I think that all of us have a tendency to want to speed things up for the end result, forgetting that yoga is a process, it's a lifestyle. People often will say, well, why do you practice yoga? And I say, well, actually, I don't practice yoga. I'm a yogi living a yogic life. And there is a difference because once you are initiated and the masters are within you, you change and you begin to disallow certain characteristics, experiences, relationships to no longer even come into your realm. And that in itself is a phenomena. And speaking of that, in your very large life, demanding professional career, how did you balance and create space for your practice?
That's a great question. And, over 24 years of practice, it's certainly not been perfect. But I think when you discover something that makes your very existence better and happier, it is natural to want to do that. Now, I remember, the teaching Guruji has often tried to, teach, and so is acharyas. It's like meditate 3 times a day. There are very rare occasions, unless I'm on a retreat, that I actually have been able to meditate 3 times a day. But what I did do, as you said, because I worked many long hours in a week, was I would have to carve that time out first thing in the morning. And so that meant I would be up at 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. Now, here's the only catch about that. I am now retired, and I'm still getting up at 4:30 in the morning.
Right. I'm with you.
So for me, it was a matter of putting the practice first
Yes.
thing in the morning, along with some reading, and then allowing that to guide my day
And support you.
and support me throughout the day. So, that first thing in the morning, that first big rock, placing it, in the cup of whatever that day was going to be, it would color everything that would come after that, because I had turned on the pilot light, so to speak. I woke up and I turned on the pilot light and I had that communion. And then I would go on with my day like everybody else, make breakfast, shake out the dog, just showered, parking lot, park up, and there you go. Meeting at 9, meeting at 10, meeting at 11, meeting at 11, meeting at 12, meeting at 13, all day. And then you go back and you go home, and because if you're living the principles all day, then really the entire day is practice,
Yes.
right?
That's right.
Your entire day is practice. And I've often heard the Guruji say it. I don't know, I can't remember. I may have read it from Gurudev, but that, at least Gurudev certainly always said, Kriya Yoga is practical spirituality. It's for a practical life. And I think it's one of the reasons I was very drawn to Sheila Hiri, Baba's story very early on. And I would read his book over and over again, because it showed me you can be in this householder life and still live a Kriya life. And so it's not, for me, this practice is not something you study and put on the shelf. It is something that was, to me, my understanding was I was meant to live it in every moment of my life, in every way. And that's how. that was a book. And I think to this, I think as recently as my last retreat where Guru Dev was, uh, Guruji was, he was saying again, it's practice. It's about practice, and practice does not solely mean meditation. They'll often say you can't meditate all day, but you have to live the practice. Are you living the practice of Kriyavan? Are you living the principles of Kriya? And it's so simple. It's simply do no harm, right? It's also do no harm to others, do no harm to yourself, do no harm, and then beyond do no harm comes love. Love everyone, everything, in every way. And if you're working on those two principles, the answer to every question lies there.
It certainly does. And especially when we tie in this and remembering God in every breath.
Remembering God in every breath.
And then our life becomes a meditation in a sense. It truly does. And then you drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh, and wasn't it delicious?
It's my favorite.
It has served me and my life well. The outcome has been peace, prosperity, and as you can see, a very a successful life,
a joyous, successful life.
Joyous, successful life. I've done many things, traveled the world, but as a Kriyavan.
Yes. Well, as you know, Guruji has written well over 100 books, and Guru Dev has left us treasures, great pearls of wisdom. And Yogananda has also left tremendous volumes of books. If you were approached by a young woman who was interested in Kriya, is there any one particular book you might recommend, or a handful, or?
I think this is probably the hardest question you've asked me.
You do not have to answer. You can pass.
Oh no, I won't pass. But I will say this: there's such a library of books, but I do believe each journey's an individual journey. And so I think as you go through, particularly the library, Guruji's library, which really address some very practical things of how to live and how to be. But I think that's step two. I think step one, if you're thinking about becoming a Kriyavan, or if you've just become a Kriyavan, I do think it's important to read Autobiography of a Yogi. I really do. I think that foundational text is really a, a helpful insight into this new phase of your life that you've just entered. And now I would add on top of that my time with the master from Guruji. I do think you put those two together so you understand. It helps you to understand the lineage that you've now become a part of if you do that. And then it also helps you to understand the role of the guru and the disciple. And those concepts may be foreign to anybody who has not grown up in, maybe India or had, that sort of influence in there. So if you're a Westerner, having that understanding of that relationship, I think is important. And then let yourself be drawn to that library of books that speak to, where it is you need to heal or where it is that you need direction, because there's so many, and I've read so many of them, um, that I do think if you understand the lineage, you understand how Kriya Yoga came about, and then you understand the role of the guru and the disciple, and in particular, um, understand if you have questions or doubts, when you see the discernment through which Guruji went and choose, in accepting Gurudeva as his guru, if it helps to really, if you have any questions, it will help to clarify them in your own mind. So I think as a brand new, and I think it will also give you the awe and appreciation of this gift that happens, that you've now become a part of this line and a part of this practice. And then moving to those very practical books, they will transform your life.
Yes. Well, this was excellent advice. And I believe that we have to always turn back to the masters telling us that it's good to read a little and to meditate more. And so anybody who's listening who has not been initiated, we encourage you to come and join us and just find out more about Kriya. And I think that today Diane has made such a wonderful impression on the steps that life offers us to be drawn deep into the heart of this remarkable path. And before I let her go, I'm just going to ask her one more time, which she's already answered in many different ways, but what brings you the most joy today on your spiritual path, Diane?
Uh, I would say what brings me the most joy is really this daily sense of connectedness I feel, this beautiful relationship that I have developed with God, with my gurus, and a chance to commune with other Kriyavans in this journey that we're on, that makes me smile. But ultimately, it's just having just the knowing of, and the peace of living a life that is fulfilling, is guided, and having the access to answers to any questions and feeling that love. It's just daily through the practice. And it's such a sense, gives you that in itself, just gives you such a sense of joy. It emanates from those who are in the practice, and it emanates from just your own private connection, the gift that you've been given. Before I go, I want to read you this one little thing, and I agree, Gurudev also said, read very little. Initially, I think you might need to read, clarify to get what you need to have a greater understanding. But I agree, my reading has gone to very little, and I might read a page a day. But recently I read this and I wanted to share it before I go. And it is from one of Guruji's books, but I actually found it in the volume of the Tao Te Ching in Light of Kriya Yoga. And it says, obstacles on the spiritual path are very much like tyrannical rulers in the physical world. If they cannot be overcome, then life seems miserable and not worth living. Human life is a beautiful opportunity for eliminating weaknesses, cultivating strengths, and experiencing divinity. And that experience of divinity, to me, is a source of joy. And it's accessible to all of us in any moment.
Om, 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 amen. That's just wonderful. Diane, you have been a breath of fresh air and a wonderful example to new Kriyavans, to seasoned Kriyavans, to men and women alike all over the world, because you truly are living as a true yogi and a devotee on this beautiful path. We thank you from the bottom of our heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Diane.
It's been an honor and a privilege. Much love. Thank you.
Thank you. Much, much love. And we want to thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Living in Joy with the Women of Kriya Yoga. If you've been uplifted by what you heard today, we invite you to stay connected with us, subscribe to our Women of Kriya Yoga YouTube channel, and listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your positive comments and reflections mean so much to us. They help us spread the light further and uplift more hearts around the world. Let me leave you with the wisdom now of Paramahansa Yogananda when he said, "If you live with the Lord, you will be healed from the delusions of life and death, health and sickness. Be with the Lord, feel his love, fear nothing. Only in the castle of God can we find protection. There's no safer haven of joy than in his presence. When you're with him, nothing can touch you." Until the next time, may you continue to walk your path with love, devotion, and joy. Om, Om, peace. Amen. Jai Guru, everyone. Jai Guru.
This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Ministry of Kriya Yoga International. You can learn more about the ministry at our website, womensministryofkriya.org. Kriya Yoga is a powerful meditation practice that awakens constant communion with the divine through the science of the breath. Handed down from teacher to student in an unbroken lineage of enlightened masters, it transforms body, mind, and heart, helping us be calmly active and actively calm. Today, this living tradition welcomes seekers everywhere through the guidance of Paramahamsa Pragyanananda, the principal disciple of the great master Paramahamsa Hariharananda. To learn more about Kriya Yoga, please visit kriya.org.